Welcome to the Organizational Maneuverability Radio Show, Defying Gravity so your team can soar at altitude, with host Marshall Goldsmith, Executive Coach Randy Swaim. But the three phases, there's three phases. The first one is referred to as the preparation phase. And you got to remember that for my life, that was basically about 15 years when I was just learning stuff. And in my childhood and my family life, a lot was struggling and all that kind of stuff. Um, um, but it's also a time when we learn and can develop who we are. You know, it doesn't get us where we need to be or what we want to be, but the preparation phase is, keep in mind, in my life, it was basically about 15 years, and it was really about learning much about what's important, what's my story, what's missing, what do I need to be thinking about, and just kind of not really clear on that in a lot of ways, but just some of that happened when I was in high school, and I was on the football team for 1 year, but I was a third string wide receiver kind of thing, and and I will tell you this, at the preparation phase, sometimes if you let it, it can kind of make you go, oh, kind of thing, because I thought when I go on the football team, I'll be able to do this. Well, guess what? It was a good football team, and I was a third string wide receiver. So I didn't get to play a whole lot. I was at every practice, but I didn't get to play a whole lot on games and stuff. Uh, just something to think about when you're talking about the preparation phase. The second phase is referred to as the isolation phase, and realize that for my life, this isolation phase was about 5 years or so. And some of the insights and lessons that we need to learn cannot happen when you're wealthy or rich or just doing everything you want. Sometimes there's a phase where you need to learn and you need to become aware of certain aspects about it. And in my life, that took about 5 years, when I was working in the medical field and things like that. Not that that was a bad thing, but it wasn't what my dream was. It wasn't, what I really wanted to do. And so the isolation keep in mind, it helps you learn about what is truly worthy in your dream, in your mind, in your life, in what you're wanting to become, and what that looks like, and all of that. And there is a phase where you have to kind of prepare that and to learn that in each of us. And the isolation phase is the one that can help that. And then the third one is the validation phase. And the basically on the validation phase, after you go through the preparation phase, the isolation phase, and you get to this, you're learning your awareness of what you've learned and you've seen, not because of what somebody told you, but because of your experiences and everything. The validation phase is one, and for my life, that's been actually about 50 years now, kind of thing. But the validation phase is a phase where once you've learned what it's truly about, okay, the validation phase is now focused on your true purpose and destiny in your journey. And you have clarification on that, and you know what it looks like for your life. And so those are the three phases: the preparation, the isolation, and the validation. Just keep in mind that part of the preparation phase is not just, oh, what are we going to do? No. But one of the big aspects about it and why it's so critical is that the preparation phase is it's who we are, learning and developing as who we are. Because you know what? We may not realize that a lot of times in the first 10 or 12 years or 15 years of our life, we have no clue about who we really are, what we're really wanting, what we're really struggling with. Perhaps what do we have within our body and in our physical aspects and things of that nature. So the preparation phase is key on that because this preparation phase, like I said, for my life, it was about 15 years. And the preparation phase was a time in my life. And it was a time where I learned and developed a lot of who I was. That means part of the thing of the things that I'm struggling with right now, but also what do I want to achieve? What do I want this to look like? And get some clarity on that. A lot of that is part of that preparation phase. And there's a lot of people that just kind of quit and fail when this happens because guess what? In the isolation valve phase, and in my life, this was about 5 years or so. If you find out that what you're doing, if you get ready for a job and the job is not what you dreamed of, and guess what? There are some people out there, I hate to say this, but there are people out there that had a dream of something, but because of their physical nature, they weren't allowed to do that as their job, perhaps. I know in flying airplanes, which is my career, kind of thing in a lot of ways, in flying airplanes, if you don't have the physical that you can do that, you can't be a pilot. You can't do that. And when you're talking about the isolation valve, you've got to learn about the worthiness and the wealth aspect of your life. And you know what? The isolation valve might be something that gives you insights and lessons that one needs to learn that cannot happen when you're just wealthy or rich or whatever, and not just what you want. You may have to get a clearer picture of what you want with that so you can see what you need to do. So it's the isolation valve sometimes can be very challenging. Uh, Keep in mind that those, those kind of valuable moments, those short moments can be incredibly valuable or amazing in a positive way or a negative way. And you got to be aware. I know some of the aspects that I've had in my life with people that I've uh, uh, you know met and things of that nature, and people that uh, I met professionally, and amazing things happened out of it, and everything um, is just an amazing part of that. And so it's, keep in mind that it's not just something that you convince people to do for you. No, it's about you and your life and your journey and what you're doing and what factors are coming on scene and what do you see happening on that. Guess what? You may think, I want this person to prove me to come do this. They may not, but over here they might. Somebody else might, and being aware of all those sort of aspects about it. Because sometimes that can be a little different than what we were hoping for. I'll tell you a key story that is very aligned with what we're talking about with these three phases, because it was at a time where I was in my isolation phase. But as I mentioned to you, that I had gone into a medical field and was a respiratory therapist, and I was glad to be helping people, but it wasn't my career. When I was a youth, a lot of the TV shows that I watched on TV were military flying, 12 o'clock high and things like that kind of thing. And that was that. And I had military models all over my bedroom of military airplane models. And that was just what I was always, and I would always build those models, gluing them and stuff like that and everything. And that was huge. But going into a medical field, I was not going to be following my passion. And I knew that. And it was like, ho, 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 ho. But I shared this story with you once before. But there was one story where I was going for a ride in an airplane with an instructor. And, um, and I thought, okay, well, this will be kind of okay, I guess. And the instructor was going to be in the left seat. He was going to be flying it, not me. I was just going to be riding it. But as we walked out to the airplane, he looked at me, he said, Randy, and I did not ask for this, but I just blew it away. It was amazing. I he said, Randy, I said, what? He said, why don't you get in the left seat and fly the airplane? You do the takeoff and landing. I went, what? And he looked at me very seriously in a calm way, and he said, but I'll talk you through it. And I said, okay, are you sure? And he nodded his head. So I got in the left seat of the airplane, the pilot, captain's seat and stuff, taxied out and lined up on the runway, and he talked me through the takeoff. And when I felt the airplane break the ground under my control for the first time in my life, you talk about those momentary moments. Every one of those childhood visions came flooding back to me that quick. And to make a long story short, I actually applied to go back to college because I said, you know what, I'm going to see if I can maybe follow aviation now. And and I applied to go back. I wanted to go to North Carolina State University, NC State Wolfpack kind of thing. But he had I applied at 4 universities, and I got an acceptance notice from NC State even before I got hello from anybody else. And I said, cool, cool. And I went in there, I went into ROTC, but I had to graduate in order to fly. I had to graduate by my 25th birthday. And that was 3.5 years away. And my degree is in applied math and physics. And I'm sitting there going, oh, so I had to go to every summer session. I had to do, typically about 18 to 22 credit hours every single semester. And it was like a wild, amazing, 3.5 years. And to make a long story short, it turned out that I completed, and they knew that I had to be commissioned by my 25th birthday, and they set me up for graduation, and the ROTC detachment signed me, and my mother came in and actually pin stuff on and all that sort of stuff. But there was, um, I got totally approved to go to flight training in the Air Force as Lieutenant Randy Swaim, and I did that. And it was actually the back seat in the F4. It was a Wizzo, and I became an instructor Wizzo. Um, uh, uh, and so and that's like being a co-pilot, but with the F4 Phantom you had the full complement of flight controls back there. So about I think my flight time in the F4 was right around 3,500 hours, and out of that about 25 to 30% of that was as sole manipulator controls flying the airplane. And so it was a cool career to say the least. But it's that's just one thing about this validation aspect and some of those key moments that happen. The validation phase is just the aspect of focusing on your destiny and your journey and what you're really wanting to do. And for me, now keep in mind, sometimes somebody's validation phase is, I just want to fly and that's it. You know, well, I didn't. I wanted to fly. I wanted to fly at, fighters. I wanted to grow. And to make a long story short, during the validation phase, once I got commissioned as a lieutenant in the Air Force, and I knew I was going to go to WISO, a nav training and all that, and I got approved. Part of the validation dive, it could be that I wasn't going to get fighters, that I was just going to get, say, transport airplanes or something. But it turned out that I was that I got fighters, and it was interesting because on the day where the commander invited us all over because he was going to let us know what we were approved for. It was our graduation time from the flight training and everything. And he got to my name, and he lost his place on the page. He goes, Lieutenant Swaim, yes, sir. And he goes, um, 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 and inside me, I'm going, come on, because everybody that was going down there, like I said, there wasn't a lot of fighter people, and a lot of them were tankers and, transport airplanes and things like that. But then he found my name, and he looked at me and he goes, oh, yes, Lieutenant Swaim, F4's EWO. And I said, oh, wow. And EWO was electronic warfare officer, where you become an expert on that. And so I got a chance to go to EWO training and F4 qualification training. And when I graduated from F4 qualification training, I was awarded the Outstanding Graduate Award for that class. And I actually got handpicked to go into one of the top squadrons in the Air Force, the 335th Chiefs um, at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. And it was just amazing, the journey. But when you look at this aspect, and that's just the first part of it, but as you're growing, and where I started to become an instructor and being able to train other jet pilots and certify them in addition to all of this, that is growing it. But then, and you know this, one of the things that even grew since then, because I retired from the Air Force in 1993, and I was involved in jet training for people for about the next 6 to 7 years. And but then I was handpicked to come over to Dallas Fort Worth Airport, kind of thing, and was training jet pilots over there. But in addition to this, and uh, that not only did I welcome getting to know you folks and getting my becoming a part of NPN Hub and getting my neuroscience awareness and the awareness of that and the uh, master level neuroplastician and all of that kind of stuff, and then doing a lot of that sort of stuff and bringing a lot of that and the coaching certification. I'm a Marshall Goldsmith certified coach. All of that is part of what's helping me make other people better, even when I'm just coaching them or when I'm teaching them as pilots and stuff. And so this validation phase can be the rest of your life. And one of the things I've had people ask me just sometimes, when are you going to retire? They're not asking me to retire, but they know I'm 72 years old now, and so it's kind of just asking, when you going to retire. And I look at them and I go, when I take my last breath, because you know what? I'm going to run through the tape. Kind of thing. And I'm going to keep working for people and making a difference in people for as long as I'm alive. And so but it's just amazing to be a part of NPN Hub and all you guys are doing and just all of this. But that's why I say the validation phase has been about the last 40 years. And, and you know what? It can be. And if all you're doing is looking to do one thing, sell this one thing, and that's it for the next 45 years, your validation phase may be a year or maybe 8 months or whatever kind of thing. But the bottom line is if you're looking to make your life make a difference and really bring a lot, and not to call attention to yourself, no, but to make a difference and to hopefully, keep in mind when you think about legacy, it's not just about you doing it. It's not about people calling attention to yourself. It's about people realizing that there was this one person. And when I do take my last breath one of these days, you know, I don't mind if people don't remember my name. But what I hope is that there was this one guy, and I don't remember his name, but there was this one guy that brought out this one aspect You know what? I brought that to my life and it's been amazing. Thank you. Just it's been amazing because guess what? That's one way where you can get some other people to maybe click into the isolation phase when you need it or to the validation phase when you're going. So my validation phase has been 40, you know, 40 years or so. So it's a key aspect about it. And you know, when you're really serious about making a difference in what you're doing, and again, not to call attention to yourself, but make a positive aspect for other people. And in some cases, maybe people you don't even know, kind of thing. That's what all this is about. But that's why with the validation phase, it's been 40 years plus worth. So yeah.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.